So, picture this. I built a company from the ground up, poured years of blood, sweat, and late nights into it, and then my father hands it over to my brother, Kevin, who has no clue what he's doing. I was told to accept it or leave. And well, I left. But here's the thing, the chaos that follows total disaster. I'm talking a family, a company, and a legacy on the line. Stick around because this story gets wild. By the way, where are you watching from today? The boardroom felt suffocating, like stepping into a tomb where the silence presses against your chest and every second drags on forever. I sat there at the mahogany table, hands clasped so tight my knuckles went white, staring across at my father, Arthur. His face was unreadable, like he'd been carved from stone, and I'd spent 34 years trying to understand that stoicism. Next to him, Kevin leaned back in his chair, smirking, so casual it made my stomach twist in disgust and rage all at once. Then he spoke, or rather, my father did. "I've made my decision," he said. His voice was steady, calm, like he wasn't about to upend the last decade of my life. My heart slammed in my chest. I'd known this day was coming, and I'd prepared. But preparation doesn't stop your chest from feeling like it's been shoved through a paper shredder. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm ready. Dad, I have the transition plan drafted. I can..." He didn't even look at me. Not really. His eyes were glued to the paperwork in front of him, smoothing a crease that didn't exist. "No, Amelia," he said softly, almost pitying. "Kevin is taking the chair. He's the eldest. Tradition, it's the right way." And just like that, the room tilted, the floor slipping beneath me. I looked at Kevin. He wasn't shocked. He was grinning. That lopsided, smug grin that screamed he'd been planning this for months. Months. And I, the one who had built every system, every route, every contract, was expected to sit down and play. And what secretary to his vision, I tried again, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. "Dad, Kevin doesn't know the routing software. He doesn't understand the vendor contracts. Last month, he almost lost Henderson because he forgot to sign the renewal." "That's enough," my father snapped, his voice hard now, steel replacing the pity. "He is your brother. He is the future. You will support him. You'll take the role of senior advisor and handle the daily operations." My stomach twisted. Senior advisor. That's what he called it. Kevin gets to play visionary while I'm supposed to be his assistant. My legs felt like jelly. I stood up, shaking, trying to inject some fire into my voice. I can't be his secretary while he pretends to run a company I saved. My father slammed his hand on the table. "You will do it because you are family, because I am your father, and I know what's best." I laughed. No, I shouted, all the years of suppressed anger finally boiling over. "It's not best. It's suicide for the business." He rose, red-faced, looming over me, the weight of his authority pressing down. "If you cannot accept your place, then you have no place here. Walk away if you don't like it." The words hung in the air, vibrating with finality. Walk away. And for the first time in my life, I realized I could. My chest tightened, my mind racing. But somewhere in the chaos, I found calm. I looked at Kevin. He didn't blink, didn't offer a hand. Just checked his watch like my devastation was a minor inconvenience. I turned back to my father, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see a man. I saw a man clinging to a fantasy, ignoring the reality crumbling at his feet. Okay, I said, my voice almost frighteningly calm. I'll walk. There was a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. Don't be dramatic, he scoffed. You'll be at your desk Monday. No, I said, grabbing my purse. I won't. And with that, I walked out. The heavy oak doors closed behind me with a click that felt like a gunshot. The elevator ride down was surreal, cold metal walls pressing in as I tried to catch my breath. The betrayal wasn't about money or title, it was about recognition, about competence. Kevin's gender and birth order outweighed my decade of blood, sweat, and tenacity. I thought about the years of preparation, the sleepless nights, the trips and contracts, the software, the logistics hub, all of it, now to be handed to someone who barely knew what day it was. And yet, as the cityscape blurred past the glass elevator walls, I felt a strange clarity. I couldn't fix their mistakes if they didn't even want me to. I couldn't support a vision that was a lie. And for the first time, I felt the exhilarating terror of freedom. My father's expectations, Kevin's smug grin, the suffocating family rules I left them behind, the company, the legacy, all of it temporarily theirs to mismanage. But me, I walked away with my knowledge, my skills, and my sanity intact. And somewhere in that release, beneath the anger and hurt, I tasted something I hadn't allowed myself in years. Relief. The morning after the boardroom storm, sunlight poured through the window, almost aggressively bright, like it had no idea what had happened inside me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling heavy in a way sleep couldn't fix. My phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times, missed calls, 4 from Dad, 2 from Kevin, each vibration, a tiny needle in my skull. Normally, panic would have set in immediately, but not this time. I felt detached, cold, observing from the outside. I got up, made coffee, and watched the city wake up while the chaos unfolded without me. By 10, my personal cell rang. Lucy, the office manager, the one person who had seen the company from before I was even hired, was on the line. Her voice was a whisper, trembling. "Amelia, are you okay?" I sipped my coffee. "Steady. I'm fine. What's happening over there?" And she spilled it. Arthur pacing hallways like a caged tiger. Kevin, your old office. Now mine, scrambling for master credentials, yelling at IT who can't help him. I couldn't help the small grin creeping over my face. Of course they didn't have access. I asked her gently what she'd told him. She explained, I hadn't been there for years, handling all the security protocols myself. Now, Kevin was flailing in the dark. The irony was delicious. And yet, a pang hit me. I cared for the people in that company, the drivers, the office staff. But if I intervened, just one click, one password, I'd be back in the trap. The leverage I had built for myself, all those years of hard work and foresight, was real. I realized that silence wasn't cruelty, it was power. Power to watch, to wait, and let reality do what it needed to. And the truth settled over me like a cool, quiet blanket stepping in would only erase the freedom I had fought for in that elevator. The freedom I had just claimed. I imagined Kevin, the spreadsheets, the rooting chaos, the Henderson account, all of it collapsing without me, just as he deserved. I felt a strange calm, like a storm had passed, but the clouds were still rolling, dark and inevitable. The temptation to fix things, to soothe the chaos like I always had, was there. But I resisted. I knew if I answered a single question or shared one password, it would undo everything. My internal struggle twisted me in ways that made my heart ache, but I stayed firm. I was not their savior anymore. I wasn't the crutch for incompetence disguised as entitlement. And as I looked out at the skyline, the hum of the city below, I let myself feel a quiet thrill. This wasn't abandonment, it was strategy. A long overdue lesson for Kevin and even, perhaps, for my father. I stayed put, letting the phones ring, letting the emails pile, letting the house of cards wobble under Kevin's clueless hands. For the first time, the company wasn't mine to save. And that, as strange as it felt, was liberating. I let Lucy talk me through the mess, whispering updates and concerns, and all the while, I let the knowledge I had crafted, the systems I built, breathe without me. I didn't intervene, not yet, and in that deliberate, almost cruel stillness, I felt power and a freedom that made the first real smiles of the morning appear, soft, quiet, but electric. Kevin and I, we go way back. I mean, way before the boardroom, way before the logistics software, back to high school. Algebra. He failed. Who did his homework? Me. Car crash. He called me to pick him up so Dad wouldn't find out. And I did it every single time. Fast forward. I joined the family business fresh out of business school, trying to fix the bleeding company. I mapped routes by hand, slept in the warehouse office, learned every driver's name, negotiated every vendor contract. Kevin joined 2 years later. Orientation for him. Tour of the executive suite. Lunch with the VP of sales. That's it. Meanwhile, I was saving accounts on 3 hours of sleep, coordinating returns during product recalls, handling PR disasters, while he was charming the clients over steak dinners, looking perfect, smiling, effortless. And here's the thing. After one recall, I worked 72 hours straight to save. Dad raises a glass at dinner and says, "To Kevin for keeping morale high, and to Amelia for helping out." Helping out. That phrasing haunted me for years. It was like my work was invisible, just background noise, while Kevin's laziness was somehow celebrated as leadership. And it kept repeating. Every time I fixed what he broke, every time I stepped in, it was expected. Never acknowledged as my own, always framed as helping. That's where the resentment really grew. Not just for the work, not just for the titles, but for the constant erasure of what I had built. And here we are, decades later, with the company I rebuilt being handed to the same hollow charm that got all the applause before. Kevin had his smile, his birth order, his polished charisma. Me, I had the competence, the sleepless nights, the strategy, the vision, and no one ever seemed to notice, except me. I carried the weight, and he just walked alongside it, pretending it was easy. And now, in that apartment, watching the chaos unfold from afar, I remembered all of it, the late nights, the early mornings, the mistakes I corrected that never became mine to own, the accolades he got for being there while I did everything. It's funny, in a dark way. I had been conditioned to rescue him, to pick up the pieces, to fix the mess, to cover for his incompetence, and for years, I did, but that was in the past. That was when the company was a struggle, and I was trapped in obligation, not anymore. Now, remembering the old wounds, seeing the patterns play out again, I realized something crucial. I didn't have to carry him. Not now, not ever again. I met Samantha for lunch at a quiet bistro downtown, far enough from the office that no one could see us. She slid a thick manila folder across the table, and I felt that familiar pulse of curiosity mixed with dread. Samantha's sharp eyes flicked over me. "So, what's going on?" she asked, voice clipped, precise. As always, I explained the chaos, Kevin's incompetence, the emails, the missed calls, the flailing system. She nodded, already calculating, already thinking 5 steps ahead. Then she opened the folder. IP filings from 4 years ago, my handwriting everywhere, every line, every clause I had created on my personal laptop. Weekends spent coding while the world slept. Samantha's grin was shark-like. It's ironclad. "Amelia, you licensed it to the company for $1 a month, but the contract requires manual renewal. You have the power to stop the system without touching a single line of code." I blinked, my stomach flipping. "Wait, that meant..." she continued. And I started seeing it clearly. If I didn't click renew, the system would go into read-only mode. No routing, no payroll, no orders processed. Monday morning, everything freezes. And I realized, oh wow, I had built a safety measure that wasn't just to protect myself. It was leverage. Kevin wouldn't know what hit him. And I could do it all legally. I could force him to face the consequences of his own incompetence without breaking the law. My mind raced. Part of me wanted to feel guilty. I had always been the fixer, the one to swoop in and save the day. But Samantha's eyes, those piercing, no-nonsense eyes, made me pause. "Silence is your weapon," she said. "Do not answer calls. Do not log in. Do not go back. Let the chaos play out." I felt the weight of that, watching a company falter that I had built, knowing I could intervene at any second, and choosing not to. That was power. Real, intoxicating power. But there was that internal tug, the part of me conditioned to rescue, to make everything right. I shook my head, trying to silence it. Samantha's voice softened, firm but gentle. "If you step in, you lose control. If you wait, you let reality do the work." And the more I thought about it, the more I saw the beauty of it. I didn't have to yell at Kevin. I didn't have to argue with Dad. I didn't have to be dragged into their chaos. My knowledge, my systems, my foresight, they were my leverage, and I was finally in a position to use them. The relief was weird, a little cold, maybe, but freeing. I could watch him flail. I could let him take the title, the office, the money, and see what happens when competence meets charm without substance. Samantha leaned back, sipping her sparkling water. "You're ready for this, aren't you?" she asked. And I realized I was. For the first time, I wasn't stepping in because I had to. I wasn't saving the company for Dad or the employees or even Kevin. I was stepping back because I had built something bigger than them, something they couldn't touch without me. And in that realization, I found calm. Not the calm of surrender, but the calm of power. I didn't need to intervene. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to wait, to let the structure I built do its work. The system, the safety measure, the license, it wasn't a trap. It was a firewall, a line drawn, and suddenly, I understood the game had changed. I wasn't playing by their rules anymore. I had my own, and it was almost exhilarating. The first week of Kevin as CEO was catastrophic, but in a way that was almost fascinating to watch from the sidelines. I sat in my apartment, coffee in hand, letting the world unfold without me. Kevin had no idea what he was doing. The phones were ringing off the hook, emails piling up, and the Henderson account, the same account I had saved countless times, was teetering on disaster. His LinkedIn post, pure bravado. "Leadership is about making hard choices," he wrote. "Trimming the dead weight." Dead weight, that was me. I almost laughed out loud, but I kept it quiet, feeling that cold thrill of watching the dominoes fall. Then came the calls from Lucy, updates whispered like secrets. Kevin was yelling at IT because he couldn't access the logistics server. Drivers didn't know their routes, payroll was delayed, and he was blaming everyone but himself. I could hear the panic in her voice, the tremor of fear from someone who'd seen me handle these crises 1,000 times. But I didn't intervene. Not a word, not a click, not a password. And the tension in the building grew like a storm cloud. Kevin tried to salvage it with meetings, barking orders, striding into the warehouse like he was in command. But he didn't understand the routing software. He didn't know the vendor contracts. He didn't even remember who the key drivers were. He was improvising blind, and the company was unraveling beneath his feet. It was almost mesmerizing. This chaos I had orchestrated by simply stepping back. I had built the systems, the safety nets, the processes. Now, without my hand, they were exposed, fragile and beautiful in their inevitability. And Kevin, he was flailing, sweating, red-faced, growing desperate by the hour. Calls from Henderson demanding answers, staff panicking, supervisors confused. He tried to call me, obviously expecting some miracle to rescue him. I didn't answer. Samantha's voice echoed in my head. "Silence is your weapon." And so I stayed silent, but the scene in my mind was vivid. Kevin stormed into the server room, demanded passwords from IT, who shook their heads helplessly. He argued with Lucy, who remained calm, polite, and utterly unmoved. He was losing control, and every second, the company was slipping further from him. And I watched, cold, calculating, knowing exactly why he couldn't fix it. The license I had created years ago, the manual renewal, the safeguard, that was my shield. If he had fired me but tried to operate the system, it wouldn't respond. He had no keys. He couldn't access the network, couldn't process orders, couldn't pay the drivers. I sat back, letting the thrill wash over me. The panic on his face, the frantic energy, it was mesmerizing. And then the confrontation started. Kevin called me, practically screaming through the phone. Threats, accusations, bluster. "You put a virus in the system," he spat. "You'll be arrested." I actually laughed. Not a mean laugh, just a pure, liberating laugh. "It's not a virus," I said. Voice, icy calm. "It's the license. You didn't renew. You're the CEO. Surely you read the agreements before taking the office." He sputtered, confusion replacing anger for a brief, glorious moment. And I could hear it all, the panic, the scrambling, the realization that he had no control. He didn't even understand the tools in front of him. Tools I had designed, built, and maintained. And I kept the distance, kept the silence, letting the company wobble under his incompetence. It was painful, in some ways, watching things I had built, my life's work, struggle, but it was necessary. I had to let him see the consequences of title without substance, of charm without competence, the system, the license, the protocols. They were my silent army. And Kevin's panic was the first battle. I didn't intervene. Didn't offer advice, didn't soothe. I watched, detached, feeling a strange combination of exhilaration and vindication. He was failing spectacularly. And for once, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces. Something about Kevin's panic didn't sit right with me. I mean, the software license explained part of the chaos. Sure, but there was a deeper layer, a hidden misstep he was desperate to cover. I booted up my laptop, methodically searching the county clerk's filings, starting with Kevin's name, then expanding to Miller Logistics assets. And then I saw a lien filed 3 months ago against the main warehouse for an unpaid loan. My stomach twisted. $500,000, high interest, short term, from a predatory firm called Apex Capital, and it wasn't authorized by Dad. My pulse spiked. Where had the money gone? I traced the bank account. Online, offshore, Cayman Islands. My brother hadn't just been incompetent. He'd siphoned money from the company. The weight of it hit me. This wasn't just about balance sheets or systems. It was about livelihoods, the drivers, the warehouse staff, and Dad's legacy, tied up in decades of sweat and strategy. If the bank called the loan, they could seize the warehouse, the trucks, even Dad's retirement, all collateralized without his knowledge. I needed confirmation, a second set of eyes. Lucy was the one? I called her, trying to keep my voice steady even though my hands shook. Lucy. I need you to check the files in Dad's old office, I said. Careful not to panic. Bottom drawer, under capital expenses. Look for any loan agreements with Apex Capital. Take a photo if you find it. There was a long pause, her breath audible on the line. Apex, I've never heard of them. She whispered. Just check, please. 10 minutes later. The phone buzzed. There it was, a crisp photo of a loan agreement for $500,000 secured against the primary distribution center. My chest tightened. The interest rate was astronomical, and the funds had been deposited into a bank account I didn't recognize. Not a vendor, not an internal account offshore. Kevin's desperation suddenly made sense. He wasn't just panicking over missing passwords or routing issues. He had created a ticking time bomb for the company and my father, and he had no idea how to contain it. I sat back, letting the reality settle in. The employees' livelihoods, the clients, the company itself, even Dad's well-being, all of it was on the line. But I didn't feel panic, not yet. I allowed myself to think, to plan. Each piece of evidence was a puzzle. Each photo from Lucy, each filing I cross-checked, added clarity. The offshore account was the smoking gun, the lien, the framework of his deception, and the more I examined it, the more the path forward became clear. I wasn't stepping in to fix Kevin's mess. I wasn't rushing to save Dad from the fallout. I had leverage, built years ago, and now I could use it strategically. The decision had to be precise. One misstep, and I could be implicated, or worse, lose the advantage I had painstakingly secured. I texted Dad, meet me at the office, 2 o'clock. No reply, but I knew he would come. I mobilized Lucy to keep digging, photographing every relevant document, every ledger, every possible piece of evidence. The tension mounted with each passing minute. I thought about the warehouse, the trucks, the staff standing idle, confused, fearful. I thought about the Henderson account, the one Kevin almost lost, now exposed to disaster. And yet, I kept my distance, observing, processing, planning. I felt a strange thrill in that control, knowing the timing, the exposure, the inevitability of consequences. Kevin was desperate, he was flailing, and I held the map of the battlefield. Every scenario played in my mind: Kevin, panicking, staff confused, dad blindsided. Each outcome required careful consideration, measured steps. I had to ensure the company survived the incompetence without me risking my leverage. This wasn't vengeance, it was responsibility. Protecting what I had built and ensuring the truth reached the right people at the right time. I rehearsed my approach, my tone, my evidence. If Kevin lied, if Dad refused to see, I had documents, dates, numbers, and proof. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't emotional. I was precise. The company teetered on the edge, and I had the ability to stabilize it or watch the consequences unfold, but only according to a plan I controlled. And in that deliberate stillness, the adrenaline mingled with clarity. I felt empowered, dangerous even, but rational. Kevin had gambled recklessly, and now he would face reality on my terms. The stakes couldn't be higher: the company, the employees, my father's health. Everything tied together, and yet the path forward was unmistakable. I wasn't just waiting for the disaster to unfold. I was preparing for it, armed with evidence, strategy, and resolve. The pieces were falling into place. I had the power to expose the truth, protect the innocent, and let the consequences of incompetence play out. And I felt, for the first time in years, completely in control. I stepped into the office building I had practically lived in for the past 12 years, and immediately felt the chaos. Phones ringing, staff rushing, the tension thick in the air. Arthur and Kevin were in the boardroom, and I could sense the storm before I even entered. Kevin looked panicked, pale, sweaty, tie loose, hair a mess. Arthur was furious, but there was also that stubborn, immovable mask on his face, refusing to accept reality. I carried the folder with the Apex Capital loan and placed it carefully on the table. "You have some nerve," Arthur spat, his face red. "Sabotaging the system and then blackmailing your brother. I didn't sabotage anything," I said, calm but firm. "I'm here about Apex Capital. That's what's important." Kevin's face drained of color. "Apex? Who is Apex?" he stammered. I pointed at him. "Tell him, Kevin. Tell Dad where the money went." "She's lying. I didn't," Kevin protested, standing abruptly, trying to appear composed. "I have the bank records," I interrupted, voice steady. "You don't—" "I know about the offshore account." Arthur's frown deepened. He looked from Kevin to me, as if searching for some explanation. For a split second, I thought he might finally understand. But no. His old habits kicked in. If Kevin took a loan, it was for the business. He has vision. Amelia. "You wouldn't understand, you're too cautious. You're just an administrator," he said, dismissing everything I presented. I met his eyes, stunned but resolute. "Dad, he didn't put the money into the business. Vendors aren't paid. He stole it. Stop it." Arthur slammed his fist on the table, voice booming. "I will not have you slander your brother in this room. You are jealous because I chose him." I took a deep breath, letting the tension in my chest settle. Enough. I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. "You don't have to cut me out." "Dad," I said softly. "I'm already gone," Kevin smirked, thinking he had survived, assuming Dad's protection saved him again. "You win, Kevin," I said, calm and deliberate. "You can have the company. You can have the loan, you can have the mess, but you cannot have me to fix it. Arthur's voice cracked as he ordered me to unlock the system. Now, you will renew the license. I shook my head. No, I said firmly. The contract is expired, and I'm not renewing it. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, Arthur shouted, but his words sounded distant, almost powerless. Kevin's threats and frantic lies didn't touch me. I had no more obligation to play their game. I had control, and I chose independence. As I left the boardroom, a calm clarity settled over me. No anger, no panic, just the satisfaction of finally standing on my own. This wasn't rebellion. This was self-preservation, a declaration of freedom. I didn't need their approval, their manipulation, or their expectations. The company, the loan, the chaos, it was theirs to handle. I had my skills, my knowledge, and my resolve. I was done being the crutch, done being the pawn. I was finally walking away on my own terms, independent, unshakable, and free. Launching Vance Logistics was surreal. After walking away from the family company, I had no office, no team, just a vision and the confidence that I could build it again on my own terms. The first week felt like a blur. I was sketching out business plans in a small industrial park suite that smelled of fresh paint and ambition. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every client I reached out to, every driver I recruited, I felt the thrill of creating something that depended on me. Not Kevin or Dad. Mr. Henderson was the first big win. I called him personally, reminded him of our past successes, and laid out a new plan for his distribution needs. He listened, skeptical at first. But the moment I explained the improvements and the care we'd take, he signed on as the first client. That call felt like a spark igniting a wildfire. Within days, more clients who had been leaving Miller Logistics started reaching out, drawn by reputation and competence, not just empty titles. Reclaiming staff was both gratifying and strategic. Lucy, Mike, and a majority of our drivers came back willingly, trusting that I would provide the structure and respect that had been missing under Kevin. Walking through the office, seeing familiar faces nod in recognition, a quiet sense of pride washed over me. This wasn't just about business. It was about rebuilding trust and reclaiming the human element that Kevin had neglected. There were challenges, of course. Early mornings stretched into late nights. There were moments of doubt, like when a shipment arrived late or a route needed manual adjustment. But those moments were different from the chaos at Miller Logistics. They were controlled, manageable, fixable. I wasn't reacting to incompetence. I was proactively creating systems that worked. Every decision, every call, every routing adjustment reminded me why I had walked away in the first place. Freedom wasn't just in leaving the old company behind. It was in the clarity of knowing that every success was mine, every misstep mine to correct, without interference from a hollow vision or outdated traditions. My phone rang constantly, but it was no longer panic, it was opportunity. I could see what each client needed, who on my team was available, what was realistic. Decisions flowed naturally. I felt competent in a way I hadn't in years, unencumbered by politics or favoritism. Vance Logistics grew faster than I anticipated. The systems I had built at Miller served as a blueprint, but now they were refined, adaptive, and mine. Each contract signed felt like validation not of a title, but of capability. The contrast with Miller Logistics was stark. There, the company teetered under incompetence and pride. Here, every choice reflected experience and vision. I watched as news trickled in about Kevin's struggles, missed deliveries, employee frustrations, client complaints. The satisfaction was subtle but real. I wasn't gloating. I was observing the consequences of mismanagement, and it reinforced the importance of competence and responsibility. The first major expansion came with a new distribution center. I coordinated every detail personally, ensuring that the layout, routes, and staffing were optimal. Each successful launch was a reminder that I could build from scratch and do it better. By the end of 3 weeks, Vance Logistics wasn't just a fledgling company, it was a phenomenon. Industry chatter recognized us. Clients migrated willingly, and employees were committed and motivated. It was exhausting, yes, but in a way that felt productive and exhilarating. I wasn't carrying someone else's legacy. I was building my own. There were still moments of reflection, small pangs of memory about what I left behind, the family, the title, the old dynamics. But each time, I reminded myself why I made the choice: autonomy, respect, control over my own work, and integrity in leadership. Walking through the warehouse, watching trucks roll out on optimized routes, seeing employees engage confidently with clients. I felt a satisfaction I had never experienced in the shadow of Miller Logistics. This was validation, not of birthright, but of skill, effort, and persistence. Vance Logistics became more than a business. It became a symbol of what could be achieved when competence and vision aligned. Every challenge, from last-minute shipments to client concerns, was met with strategy, not panic. I finally felt the joy of work done well, on my own terms, for people who trusted me, not for an arbitrary title or approval. And in that calm, relentless focus, I realized the profound difference between chaos and clarity, between inherited position and earned success. Every day, every decision reinforced that I had stepped into my own power, and for the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The fallout at Miller Logistics was swift and brutal. Kevin didn't just fail, he fled. Police arrived at the warehouse with flashing lights, securing the building and escorting him away in handcuffs. Staff were screaming, confused, angry, desperate for answers. I arrived just in time to see Arthur, frail and disoriented, surrounded by the chaos of bounced paychecks and seized trucks. His hands shook, his pride shattered, but he was still trying to command the scene. I stepped between him and the crowd. "Everyone, please back up. We want our money." "Amelia," shouted a supervisor. I raised my hands calmly. "I know, and I'll help." But yelling at him won't fix anything. Checks had bounced, vendors were panicked, and the employees' livelihoods were in jeopardy. But I stayed focused. This was about protecting the people and protecting my father from further humiliation. I organized immediate consultations with Samantha to represent Arthur, ensuring that Kevin's crimes wouldn't land my father in jail. It was meticulous, careful work, but necessary. Slowly, we began to stabilize what remained, securing what we could. I bought a small, safe condo for Dad, moving him away from the ruins of his estate. It wasn't the sprawling home he was used to, but it was secure, a place where he could begin to recover. One rainy Saturday, a month after Kevin's arrest, I visited him. The condo was sparse, quiet. a stark contrast to the chaos we had just survived. He sat in a recliner, staring out the window, hollow and beaten by the consequences of his choices. The arrogance that had defined him for decades was gone, replaced by grief and regret. I made tea and set it on the table beside him. His voice was soft, trembling. "They're trying to cut a plea deal," he admitted. "Kevin wants to testify that you were the mastermind." I looked at him carefully. "He's scared, Dad," I said gently. "He's always selfish. You just never wanted to see it." He turned, eyes red, hands trembling as he picked up the cup of tea. "I saw it," he whispered. "I always knew he wasn't like you. So why did I push you aside?" I let him speak, letting the weight of decades hang in the room. His voice cracked as he confessed, admitting he had been afraid of Kevin failing, afraid of admitting his own weakness. And so he sacrificed me to prop up his son. The revelation was bitter, but I didn't respond with anger. Instead, I allowed empathy to guide me, recognizing that his punishment was already lived the loss of legacy, the collapse of the company, the betrayal he had endured. I reached out and covered his hand with mine. "You don't have nothing, Dad," I said softly. "I bought the fleet. Vance Logistics has brought back the drivers, the staff. The company is alive again, even if Miller Logistics is gone. I saved what mattered." He bowed his head, tears flowing freely, overwhelmed by the contrast between ruin and restoration. "I don't deserve you," he sobbed. "No," I said firmly. "You don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I am good at my job. I am the CEO that company needed, whether you saw it or not." I stood, moving to leave. The moral closure settling in, the betrayal, the chaos. The destruction, it was balanced now by responsibility, justice, and the ability to rebuild on my own terms. My father's pride remained bruised, but he was safe. I had reclaimed control, restored what could be restored, and ensured that Kevin faced the consequences of his actions. Outside, the rain had eased. I felt the cool air on my face as I left the condo, free from the weight of obligation that had held me for years. Miller Logistics was gone, but the people, the fleet, and the legacy I valued were intact under Vance Logistics. I had triumphed not just over incompetence, but over the moral compromises that family loyalty had forced upon me. And in that triumph, there was empathy, a quiet pride, and the satisfaction of justice finally served. Looking back, walking away was the hardest thing I ever did, but it taught me the value of independence, competence, and standing up for what's right. I built something new, reclaimed control, and learned that courage sometimes means letting go of the familiar. Life doesn't always hand you respect or fairness, but it rewards clarity and persistence. If this story inspired you or made you think, drop a comment or share your thoughts. And for more stories about resilience and taking charge, consider subscribing.